Without further ado, I'd like to commend and support this bill through the House. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Jan Logie.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. The Greens will be supporting this bill, the Victims' Orders Against Violent Offenders Bill, albeit with some reservations, as have been already outlined by my colleague Dave Clendon. And along with my colleague Dave Clendon and others on this side of the House, I would just like to restate our belief in the need for a comprehensive review of all legislation and all of our practice around protecting and restoring victims' rights, especially, and I am adding this personally, in relation to domestic violence and sexual violence, for they are the main drivers of violent crime in this country, and we have not brought the numbers down. And we know that the experiences of victims have not been significantly improving of recent times. And this is an area of work that the Greens are really looking forward to working on next year when we have a new government. And we are very serious about ensuring that there is a demonstration of political will to reduce violence against women and children. And while, as Rachel Hunter once said, we know it won't happen overnight, we know it can happen if we put our minds to it. And somebody in the community was suggesting to me just last week that if we really put political will to bear, that we could see a really drastic reduction in crime against women and children within a decade, if only we would commit to the measures needed. Now, this bill was developed in response to the situation of a woman in Invercargill who was being harassed by her abuser post his release from prison. He had moved in next door to her, and police had been for a chat with him and suggested that he move, and he declined. And they said that they couldn't do anything more unless he breached the indefinite protection order that was in place and the grounds for that. And there was also nothing that they could do to protect her from the harassment that she was experiencing from his friends. So that was the impetus for this bill, and that is a good thing to respond to. While I've been out in the community, I also met a woman in provincial New Zealand who had had to send her young daughter of around the age of 12 away to the city to board because the man that had raped her daughter lived in their town and was still, when he saw her, would leer and make sexually suggestive comments to her daughter. And there was nothing that they could do to stop that happening. My hope is that this bill will address that and enable those children to be able to stay with their families in their community and not to have to run away from abusers. Clearly, these two situations we know represent many more, and Kim McGregor from the Rape Prevention Network has noted that there have been numerous cases of abusers moving in close to their victims, and clearly this does not represent justice or safety for those victims or our communities. And I would like to acknowledge that this bill is an attempt to ensure victims can feel safe in their communities. But I need to warn this House that we can't tick off safety for these victims. This bill does not represent a whole solution. While we do nothing to improve the conviction rate from the pitiful 1 in 100 of sexual offences, we leave 99 victims who are unable to get convictions without protection. And we know with protection orders that they're only one piece of the puzzle. We need resourcing and training to ensure a consistent police and court response to respond to breaches. Otherwise, we're just creating a false sense of security, as we've all too tragically seen recently in this country. And further, those offenders that have been sentenced, and ideally those who haven't, need treatment. Kim McGregor has noted that attending a treatment program for 1 or 2 years reduces the risk of reoffending down to 5%. Yet there's a waiting list to get into the programs within prisons, and perpetrators have to self-fund programs themselves after release if they haven't been sent by a court. We need a whole of government response to this to ensure safety for all.
Jami-Lee Ross.
I commend this bill to the House.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion would say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Victims' Orders Against Violent Offenders Bill, second reading.
Call on Government Order of the Day. Oh, sorry, this bill is set down for committee stage next sitting day. Call on Government Order of the Day number 3.
Land Transport and Road User Charges Legislation Amendment Bill, second reading.